this whole floor is the Halls of Fame floor, or we call the Best of Canada.
Best of Canada.
So 4 Halls of Fame, Canadian Music Hall of Fame. The Canadian Music Hall of Fame, the Songwriters Hall of Fame, the Canadian Country Music Hall of Fame, and the Disc Hall of Fame. They all live here. Wow. So Canada's icons of music come here to celebrate their legacies.
Yeah.
Now, we change a lot of exhibits. Like this one's being changed right now as we speak, and will be ready in 2 weeks when Jan Arden gets inducted in the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. But last year we had 5 inductees here last year, and they all performed. They came. There's usually a set of plaques that go up on the wall here. I'll show you just over here. Icons. These are all from Quebec.
Wow.
So this is the stuff that I've made in la musique québécoise. And so when someone is inducted, like Armagnon last year, we will recognize the name and have an event here with the artist.
Okay.
And then we will share that recognition. And this is, I think, a very important time for Canada to be working much closer together, particularly through culture and music specifically.
Yeah.
We live in a very challenging time in Canada right now. There's a lot of divisions, and regional divisions in Canada.
Yeah.
And our view at the National Music Center is we can try to create more conversation and dialogue and unity. And so artists from different parts of Canada are coming to Calgary to the National Music Center to put their name on the wall, talk about their legacies, speak and inspire people that come to visit them, come to learn about them when they're here at the National Music Center. So to learn from an artist who lives in Toronto, an artist that sings in French from Quebec, for someone from Calgary to learn about those legacies and to see how much we've achieved as a country working together from all these different backgrounds, I believe makes our country stronger.
Better, richer.
Better together.
Better together, right?
Like you said yesterday, community.
Oh, I said common unity.
Yeah, common unity.
Community is common unity. Yeah.
It's like one of the first Julie Black words I ever learned.
Yeah, I learned that yesterday as well.
Womanager?
Oh,
Womanager.
womanager.
Yeah. Womanager.
Right.
That was it. The
Yeah.
Womanager. It was one of Julie's originals.
Still an original.
Still an original.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's go. Wow.
CCMAs. You were here. The CCMAs last would have been in September.
Yeah.
Last year. So we did this whole exhibition celebrating Canadian country music, and we had major events here for 4 days.
Wow.
A lot of current singer-songwriters. They did all their songwriting workshops in their theater. Like these are touring artists who are playing all over the world now from Canada, showcasing their new songs in our theater, doing songwriting circles. And our theater was full every day for 4 days with Canadian country artists saying, "This is a new song that I wrote. This is a new song that you wrote." What we call songwriting circles, or in countries they call them guitar pulls.
Oh, right.
But it's basically like when you have a bunch of songwriters sitting around a circle and they take turns.
Yeah,
I
love it.
So we did this exhibition. It's temporary. This will come down in December.
Okay.
And we'll do something else in here.
Wow.
So we change exhibitions all the time.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Keep it fresh.
Real
Keep it
refreshing and
We
fresh,
gotta keep
yeah.
it fresh. Until the National Music Center was built here in Calgary, there was never a physical home for any of the Canadian Music Halls of Fame in our country, ever.
Isn't that crazy?
So we're the first.
We're the first. Well, the
Because you
Canadian,
just do the awards, they do the ceremony.
they do the ceremony.
But no
That was it.
structure.
There's no physical
No
structure.
physical structure.
The Disc Hall of Fame is over 40 years old. They've never had a physical home. The Juno Canadian Music Hall of Fame is over 40 years old. Never had a home until this was built.
Wow.
So now we have a home.
That's right.
Yeah, we have a home.
That's right.
It's amazing.
This is going to become the Canadian Country Music Hall of Fame gallery next year.
Wow.
But this is one of the first galleries that we opened in 2016. So it's an example of artists from all walks of musical life that have become iconic in Canada and to a certain degree around the world.
Oh, yeah.
So Leonard Cohen, cashed in Stan Rogers, Bucky St. Marie.
Okay, so I ain't gonna lie, I see 2 black people.
I know.
We need to fix this.
We are. Yeah, and the sound is coming from this piece of public art here. It's just a frequency. It's
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's powered by solar panels, by the sun. So a little story. So the bridge is, we do everything up here. Events, concerts. It's a flexible space. It's a gathering place for events.
Wow.
So at night the sound goes away because the sun's out.
You got it.
Right.
You got
Wow.
it. It's called Solar Drones. It was
Solar
made by an
drone.
artist out of old pianos that had been damaged in the flood in 2013.
Wow.
So he harvested the instruments because our old building, Julie, got flooded in 2013.
Wow.
And we had some damage in the basement. We had some instruments down there. And they were, this artist we found during the construction phase named Patrick Marold saw these old instruments and salvaged soundboards from old pianos that had been damaged, created an interface that was powered by the sun.
That's incredible.
So,
It's
and
like a windmill.
you got
Yeah.
it. So
Creating
what's
electricity.
interesting about it, so you're hearing the natural light from this planet create a sound through a musical instrument. And the reason we wanted to do that, or the reason he was inspired to do that, this artist, was our architect, as I mentioned earlier, is very much inspired by the land and the landscape and the urban, from the urban landscape to the natural and geographical landscape of this region. So Patrick was very much inspired by our architect and said, I'm going to create a piece of public art that uses nature to play music,
sound.
to create sound. So it's a really brilliant idea, and here it is, solar drones.
Now, I noticed something all through the course of the tour.
Yeah,
Every room we've been to, there's some kind of music or sound
always,
ongoing,
yeah.
living up to the testament that this is actually the home of music.
Yes,
Now, if you've not been to this building, you come to Canada, you've not been to Canada.
yeah, exactly.
You gotta come here and see this place. It's amazing.
Yeah. So this is a live room. So when Julie was in our building in 2008, many of these instruments were in our other building. This is when it was just a collection of musical instruments in our old building. And what we've done with all of these instruments is we've built a recording studio environment around them so that they can be used by artists today. So we have 5 spaces that are professionally designed recording studios. This is one of them. And artists can come in here and patch and plug in any of these instruments and perform and play to our control room, which is 1 floor below us, which is where I'll take you next.
Wow.
So this is a synthesizer that was used by Stevie Wonder, incidentally.
Whoa.
This is
Stevie Wonder, use this. Stevie Wonder.
This is Tonto. It's a very famous analog synthesizer from the late 1960s, early 1970s, made in the United States. Stevie used it on his first 4 albums throughout the 1970s, you know, Superstition, Living for the City.
Like this actual one?
Yeah, this actual one, yeah. This is where Stevie learned how to
magic right here.
how to
Touch it.
how to use early kind of transition Julie away from an R&B artist to a funk artist. Some of those sounds that are on some of those records. There's great video footage of him performing in front of this instrument in the studio with 2 producers who made this instrument. And it's basically analog synthesizers, okay? It's, you know, that were made in Europe and the United States and then put into one custom system. And Tonto stands for, it's an acronym for the original new timbral orchestra. And what they tried to do in those days was they tried to use, these were new technologies in
What
the
does it
60s.
stand for?
The timbral,
Timbral? Okay.
orchestra. So timbral, like the sound of
Yeah.
a string or the
Tambourine.
Your voice has a
Tambourine,
timbre,
okay,
right?
okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so that's what it is. Timbral. It's spelled Timbral. It's a musical term.
Okay.
So this was cutting edge technology in the
Then.
1960s and 70s. And so what these innovators did when they made this, Malcolm Cecil and Robert Margolis, they tried to recreate the sound of instruments from the orchestra using this new technology. But then what happened is these instruments started to sound musical on their own, and a new character of sound
It's coming.
created. So, like, for example, we're all relatively young. We grew up with urban music. Like, I grew up in Montreal listening to hip hop and urban music and dance music. All of that music, a lot of that music is made on machines, hip hop especially.
Yeah.
So these instruments were very cutting edge and in their day, and have had a huge impact on music. Massive impact.
Wow.
Not everybody plays harpsichords and pianos anymore, right?
No.
Right.
No, a lot of people are playing synthesizers and drum machines and manipulating music on their
David
laptop.
Guetta.
Yeah.
You got it, right? So in the day, Stevie Wonder and his producers saw the opportunity of these new sounds. And if you listen to those records, you'll hear this instrument on those records. And he was one of the first innovators to embrace
This.
this technology
Change.
in those days.
Right.
Yeah.
In those, think
Embrace the
about it,
change.
right?
Yeah.
In those days, there's a lot of guitar heroes in those days, right? But synthesizers and urban music and hip hop artists the greatest innovators of really in music of the last 30 to 40 years because they embraced a lot of this new technology. I don't tell you this, man. You're right here.
Yeah.
One of our innovators right
Yeah.
here. We have a Pro Tools, obviously, environment, but a lot of our back end is historic equipment. So we have 3 historic consoles, all British from the 1970s. So the patch bays go direct to any 3 of them. So this is a Trident A-range console from the 1970s, made in England. Only made a dozen of them.
And it's still working perfectly.
Oh yeah, well we've restored it and maintained it. And some artists still want to use historical. Some still do. Not everybody does, but some still do.
Different sound.
Different
It
sound,
is.
right?
It's
It's a very,
warm.
very different sound.
Warm.
So-
When I can, I still get a good on reports.
So we have 3 of them in the collection, all functioning, all historic, and in some cases pretty interesting pedigree, meaning they were used by some well-known artists over their lifespan. Artists from the Rolling Stones to Led Zeppelin to Bob Marley. Speaking of Black History Month.
Bob Marley.
Bob Marley, yeah. We
Wow.
one of our rigs downstairs was recorded Marley's first tour of England. When he first came to England from Jamaica. I'll show you that rig downstairs. So there's a lot of history in this equipment. And some artists that come here, they feel it's inspirational
Yeah.
for them to work with gear that other artists have used. Artists
Great.
that they
Yeah.
Artists that they respect. Artists that
heroes.
have done great things in
Yeah.
music, right? They feel like there's some spirit.
Transference of
Within it.
spirit, yeah.
You understand what I mean? That's what's unique about the National Music Center. The National Music Center, as I said, is when we started the tours, stories about music in Canada and some that still need to be told, aren't properly being told, performances, and then a place to make and create music. But what's unique about where we create music is the equipment that we create it on has, as you've seen, lots of history and hundreds of years worth of history. Because some of the instruments that were upstairs, the oldest one I didn't show to you upstairs was from 1570, and it still
Wow.
plays to the synthesizer Tonto, to this, which is from the 1970s. All this what we call outboard gear. It's all historic. It's all has a story to it, and it's all available. More look, Garnet, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg.
You know,
you go.
we have interesting things in our collection that have a spirit about them. So that's the full story.
Love it.
Museum, performance, recording, education, sharing.
Every aspect, every equipment has a touch of story behind them.
Story.
There's some history.
It may be a story from the 1960s or 1970s, but it has in music, we call it kind of a sonic archetype or a particular timbre. Like Tonto upstairs, Tombo Orchestra. Like Julie has a timbre of her voice or character, which is unique to her.
Yeah.
These pieces of equipment have a timbre that's unique to music, like the Wurlitzer.
Sounds different.
It's like hearing
You
the
know,
sound
it's got a
takes you to an
this,
era.
Yes.
like this got a very unique sound that when you hear that, most people know that that's a whirly. That's a Wurlitzer. It has a special sound. It's like a color in visual art. It's like a particular color. So we have all of this here for artists to come and create with, and there's a lot of colors here that you can expand.
And
with,
also
right?
for people to come and
Many
learn.
colors to learn.
To come and learn.
Yeah, because all the programs that I mentioned, museum, performance, artist incubation, there's one big circle around all of them. It's called education.
That's right.
From learning about Black women in Canada that have done innovative things in music, there's a lot of Canadians that aren't aware of that. So our job is to educate audiences. To an artist coming here to record who's maybe never used a Wurlitzer,
Right.
they
Probably.
learn something from
Yes.
this instrument. To putting up an exhibit in our space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Visitors come in. I had no idea that person was Canadian. I thought they were American.
Right.
Oscar Peterson. I can go on and on and on. So
Yeah.
Even Joni Mitchell.
And Joni Mitchell too,
Like,
right.
like, yeah, Joni
Yeah.
Mitchell. It
Wow.
wasn't until, especially when she was in that Janet Jackson song,
Yeah,
and then people were like, she's Canadian.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
So education is central to
Cold,
everything.
The list
we
goes
do,
on.
right?
Yeah.
So that's one more thing I want to show you, the King Eddie, and then we're done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
This was owned by the Rolling Stones, and they used to use it as a mobile recording studio all over Europe.
Wow.
So they would bring it.
Could you go in and see or not?
Yeah, you could. Basically, it's a tracking studio that they would drive in front of a room, and then they would pull wires into the room.
Oh, stop it, really?
And then they would
Crazy.
record like off the stage, and let's say, for example, they would record off the stage, but the truck would be parked outside, and they would record direct to tape onto the truck.
Okay.
Wow.
So it was a mobile tracking controller.
Okay.
Basically, that's what it was.
Same.
And it was used all over Europe and all over the world, and a lot of very famous artists used it. And we
So innovative though.
So
Back then,
innovative.
it's like, yo, pull up, plug in.
Plug
Yeah.
in, exactly. So it's still fully functioning, and we use it for recording projects as well. So again, that spirit, you get to use this equipment that
The energy.
these artists use.
Yeah.
And this has been all over the world, this truck, and eventually ended up in Calgary. Actually,
So is it on license here, or you guys have it now? Oh, you own it.
Wow.
we acquired it a long time ago, the year 2000, and put it in storage. We heard about it through Lenny Kravitz. Someone in New York City bought this from the Rolling Stones in the late 1990s, and an engineer that was working on a Lenny Kravitz record told us about it, and we raised the money in Calgary way back in those days and acquired it and brought it back to Calgary. This is when we were building our collection.
Yeah.
Because this is a piece of music history.
Yeah.
But it's also an important piece of music technology history.
Yeah.
It's the first professional multi-track mobile recording studio. Really,
Music
in the history
on
of
wheels.
recording,
Yeah, that's
you know.
amazing.
And it happened to be used by Bob Marley, Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones, and all.
Just happened
Miles
to be
Davis,
used, right? That's
Miles
amazing.
Davis, yeah, lots of great artists.
This is
And
cool.
so we use it. You can come here and play off the floor in the Eddy and track through the mobile, or in any of our live rooms upstairs. You can track through this console because you want to use this console.
Yeah, yeah.
This particular sound.
Right.
So it's fully available in our studio environment.
Wow.
Yeah. So the entire National Music Center, about like your question about the bridge,
Yeah.
the reason we built it here was because of the King Eddy.
Okay.
All right, speaking of Black History Month, there was a time and place, if you just come out here from about this hotel was built in 1905 and then closed in about 2003, 2004. We acquired it in 2008 and built the National Music Center around it.
Yeah.
And from early 1980s to the early 2000s, this was a very famous blues club.
Oh.
African American artists would come and play here from all over. It was very famous. It was one of the few places that, and I'm just going to say it to you this way, where a largely white town on the prairies got to experience great African American artists.
Wow.
And that's why it became so special. And many great American blues artists, and to a degree, Canadian artists played here at the King Eddy. And like artists like Otis Rush, Pinetop Perkins, Buddy Guy, a long list. Hubert Sumlin that played with all kinds of really great
Those are
artists.
signatures. So that's
Clarence Gatemouth Brown. These are all famous African American artists that invented the style of music that we know as urban blues or Chicago blues.
yeah.
And they played here. And this was a very important place for Calgarians to see these artists, meet these characters,
Yeah.
Yeah.
get to know them.
Yeah.
And it has left a very powerful memory for a lot of people that saw these artists perform here. And they were all, majority of them were African Americans who had invented this music.
Right.
Wow.
They were not like, cover bands playing it, like they invented it.
Yeah.
They invented
Came
that
out
style
of
of music.
out of their soul.
It came out of their soul, right? And so that's an important piece of Calgary music history. So we decided to honor that history by saving the hotel
Yeah.
and then building the National Music Center around
Around
this
it.
hotel. So this,
So the hotel's still functioning?
no, the hotel is now classrooms and
Okay.
office space,
Offices.
but we kept the bar.
Yeah.
And the bar is still, now
Active.
it's an all music venue.
Wow, people. It's been an amazing time today. Touring the studio bell, sharing piece of history, it's been informative, educational, entertaining. Now, you gotta come to this place, because this video, you're gonna be seeing can't do justice to what I've seen today. I'm blown away. I've touched piece of history from Bob Marley, Stevie Wonder, name it. And we're so honored to have Julie Black, on this tour with us.
Thanks for spending some time today on our tour and hope to see you again soon.